Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Bernadette Jackson Podcast, where we are redefining how the world views women with daddy issues by discussing topics, sharing stories, and gaining insight, all from the perspective of a fatherless daughter. I'm your host, Bernadette, the creator of Her Way Relationship Intensive and your favorite fear investigator. If this is your first time here, here's what I want you to know. The fear of abandonment and rejection is the lens through which fatherless daughters do most things. It informs how they show up in every relationship. Most fatherless daughters are operating in the fear of abandonment cycle and they don't even know it. Each week, I focus on a topic that highlights how fear shows up in our lives, either through conversations with others or deep dives into the insights that I have. If you'd like to know if you're on the fear of abandonment cycle, go to BernadetteJackson.com/FOA cycle and take my free assessment. Again, that's BernadetteJackson.com/FOA cycle. Hey, y'all. Have you ever walked into a room and you said to yourself, ooh, I can tell that I'm not going to click with anybody here? So you find some little corner to stand in and you watch as the people you just knew you weren't going to connect with start connecting with each other? Or have you ever been about to go into an interview and you started playing in your mind all of the reasons why you were not qualified for that position? So when the interviewer starts asking you to tell them a little bit about yourself, you spat out everything that you just had rolling in your mind instead of all of the reasons why you should be in that room. This one is my favorite. Have you ever met a guy who was really dope and he was really good looking and he had all of the things going for him? He checked off your boxes and you decided that he was not going to be attracted to you because your lives were so different. Like he just was not going to like you. So you start telling yourself things like, how is he ever going to like me if he knew that I didn't know who my father was? Or if he knew how many failed relationships I had? Or how many mistakes I made? So you decided not to try to make a connection because you want to protect your heart. That's called prejection. It is a survival tactic that we learn, and we do this because we are trying not to deal with the pain of rejection. Before I get more into what prejection is, here is a word from our sponsor. Before we get back into this week's goodness, I want to invite you to join my private Facebook community, H.E.R Coalition. I make it my business to create safe spaces for fatherless daughters to learn, grow, and heal, and H.E.R Coalition does just that. We go deeper into conversations about the things that we discuss here on the podcast. I teach a new topic weekly, we share stories, and we just support and love each other. It's a space I wish I had growing up when I was clueless about how my fatherlessness affected me and yearning for a deeper connection. But I was just too paralyzed with the fear of rejection. Healing happens in community with like-minded and like-hearted people, and I would love to be in community with you. So join H.E.R Coalition at BernadetteJackson.com/community. The ladies of H.E.R Coalition get to choose the topic of weekly discussions. They get exclusive access to events and first dibs on all that my brand has to offer. So again, join me in H.E.R Coalition at BernadetteJackson.com/community. Okay, so let's jump straight in here, all right? You're probably like, prejection? What is prejection? Well, I'm going to tell you. Prejection is the act of rejecting yourself in advance so that you do not risk being rejected by others. It's used as a means to protect yourself. The three things that are most affected by prejection are your connections, your mindset, and your self-worth. Let's break this down a little bit. Remember that I said that projection is rejecting yourself in advance so that you do not risk being rejected by others. So when you think about your desire to truly connect with a person, if your thoughts immediately go to this person won't like me and all of the reasons that you play as to why that's true, what do you think you're going to do in response to that? You're going to keep your distance, right? It prevents you from truly connecting because connection requires vulnerability. And we already know that vulnerability is hard for us to begin with. We also know that vulnerability requires feeling safe. I don't know about you, but I will not open up in spaces that I don't feel safe in. So if you've already told yourself that they won't like me, your brain is absolutely going to look for the evidence of that thing that you said. Now, instead of building the connection you wanted, you're distant, you're cold, and you're looking for the evidence to support the projection thought that you had so that you can prove yourself right. Speaking of what your brain does with the information we feed it, mindset is the second thing affected by projection. Your brain is a powerful computer that searches for the evidence of the things that you feed it. Imagine that in an effort to protect yourself, you constantly put yourself down. You may not say these things out loud, but you do say them to yourself and you do think them. Your brain takes the information it's been given and it starts to look for the evidence to support it. Ooh, I can just tell that I won't click with anyone at this party turns into you standing alone in a corner. It turns into you believing that the two women across the room that glanced your way must be talking smack about you. It turns into you looking at what you're wearing and deciding that it doesn't look as good as some of the other people at the party. It turns into you believing that you can't add value to a conversation that you've overheard. It's a spiral. It keeps piling lie after lie on top of the statement that you fed yourself, all because you would rather not have to risk putting yourself out there because rejection is possible. It wreaks havoc on your psyche, and you are left constantly rolling the tape back of all of the projection statements that you tell yourself. How do you think that affects your self-worth? You cannot constantly starve yourself of the life-giving words and affirmations that you need to bloom and think that your self-worth is going to grow. Your self-worth is like a garden. It needs to be watered with affirmations and healing, tended to with self-care regimens, and pruned with the removal of toxicity and negativity. Projection is like walking into the beautiful garden of your self-worth and deciding that you're going to pluck off all of the flowers that are in there blooming. Imagine that. What kind of garden doesn't have any flowers at all? It looks ridiculous. And so what ends up happening now is that you stay activated in projection mode, and now you are in the garden of your self-worth surrounded by flowerless stems, just barren. Your brain is firing with example after example to support every negative thing you've told yourself, and you have missed your opportunity at the connection that you actually wanted. When we decide to remain stuck in an old story instead of embracing new truths that come through intentional healing, we miss the opportunity to experience the deepest yearnings of our heart. And we know that that is being seen, being understood, being loved, being supported, and being protected. So I want to ask you a question. Rather, I want you to ask yourself this. Am I activated in projection mode? What old story do you need to stop telling yourself so that you can start to build the connections you know you want? I want you to take that question. I want you to mull that over. I want you to get your journal out and I want you to start writing. And then read it back to yourself so that you can actually see what these thoughts are and so that your brain can start to really process this in a different way. If you enjoyed this episode and you know that you need to do some work in this area, I invite you to join my program, Her Way Relationship Intensive, because I go deep into this in weeks 1 and 2 when we start talking about mindset and we break down your father's story. If you want to be a part of the program, you can find all of the details to join at BernadetteJackson.com/herway. Again, that is BernadetteJackson.com/herway. I will see you in the next one. But before I go, I want you to remember that you deserve amazing relationships. So start with the relationship that you have with yourself. Bye.